Alright, how's it going, guys? This is Tony from FA20CLUB. Just wanted to give you a real quick install on these fuel pumps since we seem to be having a lot of issues with some of you guys doing this thing at home. Typically to get started, you usually want some sort of a pick tool, a hook, a straight, an angle, and 1 or 2 screwdrivers will serve you well. 2 is preferred. It'll help the process go a little bit quicker when you're working on the lower half of the basket. Now, keep in mind, I've already prepped this thing to make this video as short and sweet as possible, so mine will probably come apart a little bit easier than yours. So let's go ahead and get started. Once the pump is out, first thing you're going to need to do is remove the 3 main clips. You're going to have 1 in here and 2 on the outside that are immediately noticeable. Using your flathead, you can pry them up and release them 1 at a time. Try to keep them held up so that they don't pop back down into place, so you're not fighting yourself. After you do those, there is going to be an E-clip on the outside on the spring-loaded shaft that you're going to have to pop out. If your screwdriver is small enough, you can usually get it out. If not, use the pick tool. It'll pull it out a little bit faster. Once this is out, try not to lose any of the parts. Try to keep the E-clip in place, and then you'll have to release the clip for the actual power supply on the pump. Now, take notation of the direction of how the hose runs underneath this. A lot of people make the mistake and end up kinking the hose while they're doing the reassembly. Once you have all of this released, I usually leave it all plugged in. It makes it simpler for you to actually put it back together. Now, this is a pump assembly taken apart. What you're going to have to do is you will have 5 lower clips on the filter and the regulator. The most important part is that the regulator's clip is retained, and since it's one piece, you're going to end up having to separate the 2 halves. Some guys have been known to leave the whole bracket assembly off, and then your regulator pops out or your pump slides down, you lose a lot of fuel pressure, you run the risk of damaging your engine. In my case, I have already separated this, so this will actually come apart a lot easier than the guys that haven't cut their unit just yet. Now, what you're going to notice is this is the second half. This is what you're going to be left with after you've already cut the unit into 2 pieces, which will just be the half that you need to keep to hold the regulator in. Now, the other half is the part that you will not be using because it will not fit back onto the new smaller fuel pump. You'll be using the pickup from the newer pump. So this will get pretty much discarded. Now, normally you will push the pump back out of the assembly. That's your stock pump. So all you will need to do now is install your new pump, which can be seen here. Now, your stock pump, I have already removed this, but it does come with a plastic sleeve. A lot of you guys make the mistake of not putting the sleeve back onto the new pump. This is part of the reason you're got install guys that have 3 or 4 O-rings, which it's because you guys don't reuse the stock sleeve. The new sleeve will slide onto the pump, and you will only need to use 2 O-rings. You know? And that's pretty much about it. Once you have the new assembly, you can slide this in. It will pop into place, as you can see, snaps right in. But you'll notice the height on the pump is a little bit taller. This is the reason why you cannot use the old filter sock and retainer clip bracket. But since you've already cut it in half, you'll still be able to use the one that holds your regulator in, which is the most important part on there. And that will snap in. Now, what you're going to end up doing at this point is just grabbing the new installed sock and E-clip, and you'll be able to snap this on at a slight angle, and you will have to use their spring clip. Try not to damage this, guys. I've seen a lot of you guys tear these apart, but in most cases you can usually replace them from your local hardware store, Ace, Lowe's, Home Depot, whichever one you might have in your area. I usually just take them and force them down with the actual barbs facing up towards you. That way the barbs will grab as it tries to come back up. Go equally around it, and what you'll end up with is your pump assembly now has the retaining clip holding it on. Now for the hard part. Now we're going to go ahead and slide this unit back in. Of course, you can see the pump is not going to Your filter sock is not a perfect fit, but you still got to get it back in there and rotate it. It will not starve you for fuel, so don't worry about it, guys. And you will end up rotating it back into place, making sure this line is underneath. There is a little groove, a cavity there. We recommend that you reuse the new unit on this. You will have to unclip it. We'll do one at a time here. So I will, for you, pop that in. There we go. And then from here you will just pull out, unclip the fuel pump bracket. You can slide the wires out. You can slide the new ones back in. Back up. Yeah. Go ahead. Line up the outer clips on the outer edge. Don't have to worry about those units right now as far as the legs. You'll still be able to get them afterwards. Now, what a lot of you guys will notice is that this is kind of tense to get back in, and that's partially because you're now using the different filter sock. Now, we're going to go ahead and drop your retaining spring back in here, or you can put it on first. Sorry about that. We're going to have to rotate this up into place. Center it, pass that over there, and the last thing you will need to do is put some pressure on the top hat so you can compress the spring, and then you will just reinstall your E-clip, and you can make sure you put the pickup back on. There you go. It's a tight unit because it's a pump that's not really designed as 100% fitting, but that's what you're going to end up with the filter sock as is. It will be a pretty tight fix, but if it's tight, that technically means it's correct, because now the pump is actually pressed up as far as you can get it up into the basket. I mean, we've done a lot of successful installs. It's not 100%, but when you're dealing with aftermarket, you kind of have to figure out what works, what pieces are needed, and get it to work as best as you can. Until someone comes out with a new filter sock, that's pretty much what you got to deal with. But that's a successful install in under 5 minutes outside of the car. None of the lines are kinked. The top still compresses. Your floater's still aligned. So your gas needle should still measure accurately. That's usually a sign of a bad install right there, when you start running out of gas and your car shuts off at a quarter tank. So this is my guide. Have a good day. It's Tony from FA20CLUB.